So, ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking our recent podcast about the last executions by province across Canada. And today we're going to be talking about the case which has been a cause célèbre since it occurred in 1937. Can a man be sent to the gallows for manslaughter? Well, in this case, he was. Now, we're going to talk about the murder case involving Everett Farmer. Now, I first ever heard about this case as part of the Max Haynes crime series, which was published in a lot of maritime and Canadian weeklies like Leisure Living and Showtime magazine and such. Now, according to published reports, on the evening of August 1st, 1937, Farmer shot and killed his half-brother, Zachariah, then walked into town and turned himself in to police. Farmer said the killing had been in self-defense, claiming that after a drunken argument, Zachariah had refused to leave Farmer's home and had threatened to kill him. Since Farmer was unable to afford legal representation, and the province of Nova Scotia had no legal aid system at the time, one Vincent Poitier was appointed to represent Farmer free of charge. The trial began on September 28, 1937, with Justice William F. Carroll presiding. At the conclusion of the trial, which was very short, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before finding Farmer guilty. Now, in December of that year, he was hung from the gallows that had been constructed in the Shelburne County Courthouse, where his trial had taken place. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the facts here for a second. August was the murder, manslaughter. Late September, the trial. December, the execution. Quick justice. Now, noted Canadian author and poet laureate Joe Elliott Clark has described the case as suspect in terms of how the prosecution, conviction, and execution of Farmer may have been influenced not only by Farmer's inability to afford proper legal representation, but by the fact, get this, he was black. We're seeing a parallel here in the Maritimes where people that are black or people that have a lower, income are being executed, considered as undesirables. Now, in 2005, Farmer's case was served as the basis for Louise Delisle's plays The Days of Evan. So if we're going to take a deeper look at this, what was pretty bizarre that Everett's brother, Zachariah, had himself been acquitted of shooting a dead cousin in 1919. So the rumors of the family being rough, as we say, were very prevalent in the community. Now, let's look at what Maxine said about the case. This is from the Saltwire Network, which is a Newfoundland and Labrador, online publication. Let's just go over some of the details. Now, Everett, according to Maxine's research, was born in Shelburne in 1902. He received only a cursory education before marrying and raising 8 children. He was no saint. He liked to dip into the sauce and often had a batch of homebrew stashed away in his house. When drunk, he could be violent. In 1932, he received a suspended sentence for striking his wife Maggie. 5 years later, he received another suspended sentence for beating his 14-year-old son Archibald. Now, get this, ladies and gentlemen. Everett was only 4'6", but had an athletic build and was a catcher for the town's senior baseball team, the Shelburne Loyalists. He worked as a laborer. Now, Everett's half-brother Zachariah was a big man, weighing 6 feet. At 6 feet and weighing 225 pounds. He was a veteran of the First World War, as he and his cousin Arthur were sharing a rooming house in Liverpool when cousin Arthur bit the dust. Zach said it was an accident, that Arthur was playing with his revolver. Zach had warned him not to mess around with a loaded gun, but a warning had come too late. The weapon discharged and cousin Arthur lay dead on the floor, shot through the head. According to the jury rule, Arthur had accidentally shot himself. Despite the jury's ruling, police continued to investigate the death. For 4 weeks, they periodically called on Zach, attempting to get the truth out of him. Finally, Zach went as far as to say, "I was fooling with the revolver, she went off and Arthur fell. I was so frightened I didn't know what to do. Now that Zach had told two different stories about his cousin's death, no one believed either one. He was arrested and charged with Arthur's murder. On June 11, 1919, Zach was acquitted mainly because there was no witnesses or evidence to repudiate his version of the killing. For years after his trial, Zach continued to get into minor scrapes, most of them alcohol-related. In 1932, he spent 3 months in jail in lieu of paying a $100 fine for possession of home brew. That same year, he was sentenced to 8 months in jail. That's a big term for bootlegging. On the other side of the coin, Zach was a good worker. He had a reputation as an honest individual who never welched on a loan. When he had a few drinks, according to Max Haynes' research, it was a problem. On August 1st, 1937, Zach dropped over to his half-brother Everett's home to have a few drinks. It was a kind of ritual. Zach visited most Sundays, and other neighbors strolled over as well. The home brew was passed around, and everyone got a little tipsy. As evening approached, one by one the neighbors went home, leaving Everett and Zach to chew the fat. Maggie was lying on a couch nearby. The Farmer children were put to bed, and the two men continued to drink. In time, they started to argue. Almost any topic became crucial in the minds of their brothers. When Maggie tried to interfere, the men would not listen. Finally, Zach called Everett a liar. He also threw out insinuations about Maggie's infidelity. That was too much for Everett, and he ordered Zach out of his house. Zach, being a large man, simply refused to budge. Everett swore at his half-brother and threatened to call the law. In Shelburne, that meant the RCB detachment, manned by 2 officers and a one-man local police force, Chief Raymond Mitchell. Zach retaliated. He jumped up and told Everett, "You're never going to take the law on me because I'm going to kill you. I will kill you before morning." Everett responded, "My life is as sweet as yours. If you're going to kill me, I'll shoot you first." He dashed out of the kitchen, picked up a 12-gauge, lowered it, and returned to the kitchen. Zach threatened again, "I will kill you before I leave here." "You are never going to kill me," Everett screamed and fired. A ball cartridge flew through Zach's neck, killing him instantly. From the moment he fired the shotgun, Everett Farmer acted with cool dispatch. At no time did he appear intoxicated. He told his family he had shot Zach and that he was going to give himself up to police. He then trudged a mile to Shelburne and woke up Mitchell at 12:25 a.m. Everett's first words to the sleepy police officer were, "I came to town to give myself up. I shot a man." Everett went on to tell the policeman the details of the shooting. It was a story he was to repeat many times. Mitchell dressed and drove Everett to the home of RCP Corporal Joe Hetherington. The story of the shooting was related to the officer. Everett elaborated, "I had to do it. Zach threatened to kill me. I ordered him out of the house. He refused to go. I shot him to protect my wife and family." The officers picked up Coroner L.O. Fuller and drove out to Everett's home. Zach was reposing on a kitchen chair, very dead. He would have looked as if he was sleeping if he hadn't been for the hole in his neck. Everett turned over his shotgun to police. News of the shooting spread like wildfire. Normally it was a big night in Shelburne if a sign was torn down or a drunk fell through a window. This was murder, the town's first since the turn of the century. The day following the shooting, a coroner's jury was convened. 8 days later, a preliminary hearing was held. Everett said that he had to kill or be killed. Despite his plea, he was held over to stand trial for murder. What was a poor member of a minority do to defend himself? Everett had no money to hire an experienced criminal lawyer. There was no government-funded legal aid system in Nova Scotia, and the government did not appoint a lawyer who acted without compensation. Everett received the services of former MP Vincent Poitier. On September 28, 1937, Shelburne's first murder trial of the 20th century began amidst a festive holiday spirit. Extra RCP officers were brought in to control the crowds, all intent to see the action inside the courthouse. Not that much new was brought out at trial. The police officers, although testifying for the prosecution, related how Everett had cooperated with them and had answered all questions directly and with candor. He had reenacted a crime to assist them with their investigation. He also pointed out the dead man had been involved in the shooting death of his cousin 18 years earlier. Poitier insisted on an acquittal or at least a verdict of manslaughter. Surely the defendant had a right to defend himself. The jury deliberated an hour and 55 minutes before finding Everett guilty of murder. There was no recommendation of mercy. When asked if he had anything to say, Everett replied with one word, none. The judge then sentenced him to death by hanging. No appeal was launched, and no letters of pleas were received by politicians. In the normal course of events, the case was reviewed by Justice Minister Ernest Lapointe. He advised Cabinet that the law be allowed to take its course. On December 14, 1937, Everett was hanged. He eventually became the last person to be executed in Nova Scotia. Again, that's an excerpt from the Max Haynes crime flashback published in the Truro Daily on the case. Personally, on a level, we talked in previous podcasts about Swiss justice in New Brunswick, Quebec, the Maritimes. We talk about the Joe Richard case where the crime occurred at the start of the year, led to execution in the winter months, but that was a bad pup. I think in the modern execution in the States and in Canada, where Canada we have no, but let's say execution was still part of the Commonwealth system. This was a manslaughter case. There was no prior intent. It can't be considered full second-degree murder, so technically you can't be executed for manslaughter because, according to the evidence he provided, he was basically saying he threatened to kill me and I was worried for my family. So was the railroad of justice because the gentleman was black, because he was poor, because it was rural Nova Scotia? Shelburne wasn't a big region. It's not like Halifax. But it's just another case of a poor black man in the Maritimes being executed, not say for a crime he didn't commit, but overly sentenced for a crime he committed. How do you go from manslaughter to being executed? If I get an argument with my neighbor and I'm protecting the backyard and I have a paved highway and he falls and hits his head, am I going to be executed? I don't think so. Even if it's in the U.S. He was railroaded, in my opinion, because I've covered major cases. I've seen people with almost a first or second degree murder style of death that were involved with, and he got manslaughter. I'm talking about the Carrier brothers, my cousins up North Shore and Lorne, many years ago. It was a second degree murder. Execution was taken off the books, but he only received 12-year manslaughter sentences for what was considered by many people second degree murder. So, they had good representation because they had the McIntyre brothers, which were two well-known legal minds up North Shore. So again, no proper legal representation, no appeal by the Crown, no appeal by the Justice Department, and he was executed 2 to 3 months after the case. Come on. If that's not railroading, I don't know what is. Just another dead black man, as we like to say. Just another dead Indian. That's getting to be of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. By the way, Joe Richard was an Indian, by the way. So, not saying a serial killer should be given leniency, but you figure it out. Poor, a minority, and the system is white. You figure it out. Anyway, have a good evening. Thanks for listening. Bye.